Hello friends, welcome to the BI Courses YouTube channel. In the previous video, we saw transformations on columns in Power Query. Today, we will try learning some best practices while performing those transformations. We will start best practices with analyzing the data which we brought into Power Query, followed by consolidating similar steps together, making use of step properties, and finally understanding why to prefer SQL statements over complex transformations. Let's start with analyzing the data and the data type in Power Query. Most of the time, our Power Query is connected to a data warehousing system, or it is fetching the data from a data warehousing system, which is meant to cater different kinds of reporting, not just the report which we are working on. So, there are very good chances that we have some data which are not required for our reporting need. It's our job, being a data analyst, to find such records or columns and get rid of them accordingly. In this case, we can see that the customer ID not applicable, the value not applicable over here doesn't make any sense for our reporting needs. So, it's our duty to get rid of such records in the first place. So, let's try doing that. We are selecting everything but not applicable. Now, we have filtered out the row which says not applicable. Now, it seems like our data is good for the reporting purpose. Let's talk about checking the data types. Most of the time, Power BI is capable of looking at the data and converting them into or transforming the data type to correct type. But in this case, you see, it's a date field and Power BI has reported it as a string, which is incorrect. So let's fix this. We will change it to a date type. So it is very much necessary and it's our job being a data analyst to check the data as well as the data type and make sure that all of them are making sense for our reporting needs. Let's move on to our next slide. Now, let's see what consolidation of steps mean. It means the similar steps must be performed at the same time so that it is added as one step. Why? Because if it is added as one step while refreshes, while applying all the transformations, once the refresh of data is done in Power BI service, the application of, let's try to understand what steps, let's try to understand what consolidating the steps mean. It means similar steps, same steps must be performed at the same time so that when the refreshes happen, Power Query doesn't have to do much of heavy lifting again and again for applying similar transformations on millions of rows. Let's see an example here. In our last slide, we filtered with customer ID not blank, right? Now, we will try to rename state province to just province. And the moment we do so, we will see a step being added in here like this, renamed columns. Now I will try to filter my customer for Aaron King, Aaron Ross, and Aaron Sharma. I click OK. Another step got added with filter rows 1. Remember, in our last slide, we added a step filtered rows where we tried to get rid of not applicable as customer ID. So two similar steps here, filtering of rows are added, and in between we see one step as renamed columns. What I'm trying to say is that we should perform filtered steps only once so that when these steps are applied in order, Power Query applies it only once, and because each of the step is being applied on millions of rows. Over here, we just have a few thousand rows. But when it comes to millions of rows, it really makes a difference while refreshes. What we can do, we can go back to our filtered rows, the previous step where we actually filtered out the not applicable customer ID. At the same point, we will try to filter for Aaron King, Aaron Ross, and Aaron Sharma. This time when we hit OK, on the same step, these filtered rows will also be applied. Hit OK. You see, no more extra filtered rows step applied. And when we try to see the same on our M code, we see that the first one says customer ID not applicable and customer name to your favorites Aaron Sharma, Aaron Ross, and the Aaron King. Let's move on to next slide. Another best practice is to utilize the properties of the steps which we are applying. What we mean is, for each of these steps, let's define what these steps actually do. These are not required as a part development, but these will be very much supportive and helpful when someone is trying to diagnose any issue or want to understand what is going around with the M query or with a particular query in Power Query. Another best practice is to utilize the properties of each step. What we actually mean is we should define what each step is doing. For example, here we have filtered out customer ID not applicable and some customers, some specific customers like Aaron King, Aaron Ross, and Aaron Sharma. So let's define what this particular step is doing. This will provide you with an icon which will say what this particular step is doing. This is very much helpful while you are trying to, or while someone is trying to understand your code and changes later on after the development is done. Thank you for watching the video. I recommend practicing the best practices while doing transformations on Power Query. In next video, we will deal with remaining best practices step which makes more sense while fetching the data from SQL Server or any other database. Till then, stay tuned. Before you go, please press the subscribe button to stay up to date. See you in the next tutorial video. Thank you.